September 15th, 1954. 1 a.m. Lexington Avenue, New York City. Marilyn Monroe stood on a subway grate, wearing a white dress. The wind from below blew the dress up, revealing her legs, her thighs, almost everything. A crowd of over 2,000 people had gathered, mostly men, watching, whistling, shouting, cameras flashing everywhere. "Again!" the director yelled. "We need to do it again!" Marilyn stepped back onto the grate. The wind machine started. The dress flew up. The crowd roared. This happened 15 times, 15 takes, each one more revealing than the last. And in the crowd, watching in silent fury, was Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn's husband, the baseball legend, the man who loved her, but also the man who couldn't handle who she was. By the end of that night, their marriage was over, and the most iconic image in Hollywood history was born. This is the story of the 7-year itch, the white dress, the subway grate, the moment that made Marilyn Monroe immortal and destroyed her marriage. Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe got married on January 14th, 1954. It was supposed to be a fairy tale, the baseball hero and the movie star, America's perfect couple. But it was never perfect. From the beginning, Joe was jealous, possessive. He didn't want Marilyn to be a star. He wanted her to be his wife, at home, away from the cameras, away from the men who looked at her. "Why do you need to work?" Joe would ask. "I can take care of you. You don't need to make movies." "But I love making movies," Marilyn would say. "It's who I am." "No, you're my wife. That's who you are." Marilyn tried to make it work. She loved Joe. He was kind, protective. He made her feel safe. But he also made her feel trapped. By September 1954, 9 months into their marriage, the tension was unbearable. They fought constantly about her career, about her image, about the way men looked at her. And then came The 7-Year Itch. The 7-Year Itch was a romantic comedy. Marilyn played a beautiful neighbor who tempts a married man. It was supposed to be funny, light, harmless. But the director, Billy Wilder, had an idea. A scene that would become iconic. Marilyn standing over a subway grate, the wind blowing her dress up, playful, sexy, memorable. "It'll be the highlight of the film," Billy told Marilyn. Marilyn was hesitant. How revealing will it be? Not too much, just enough to be playful. Marilyn agreed. She trusted Billy, and she wanted the movie to be successful. The scene was scheduled to be filmed in New York City, on location, at night, on a real street. When the studio announced the filming, word spread. Thousands of people showed up. Mostly men, photographers, journalists, curious onlookers. And Joe DiMaggio decided to come too, to watch his wife work. September 15th, 1954, 1 a.m., Lexington Avenue. Marilyn arrived on set. She was nervous. The crowd was huge, overwhelming. She could hear the men shouting, whistling, already. "Are you ready?" Billy Wilder asked. "I think so." Joe stood in the crowd, arms crossed, silent, watching. Marilyn stepped onto the subway grate. The cameras started rolling. The wind machine turned on. The dress flew up. The crowd erupted, cheering, whistling, men shouting obscenities. It was chaos. Marilyn smiled, tried to play it off as fun. But inside, she felt exposed, humiliated. "Cut!" Billy yelled. "That was great, but let's do it again. I want the dress to go higher." Marilyn's heart sank. Higher? They did it again, and again, and again. 15 times. Each time the wind blew harder, the dress went higher. The crowd got louder. Joe watched every take. His jaw clenched, his hands in fists. He was seething. By the 15th take, Joe couldn't take it anymore. He turned and walked away. Marilyn saw him leave. Her heart broke. After filming, Marilyn returned to their hotel, the St. Regis, room 1105. Joe was waiting for her, pacing, furious. "What the hell was that?" he yelled. "It was just a scene, Joe, for the movie." "A scene? You were flashing yourself to thousands of men. Do you have any dignity?" "It wasn't like that. It was playful, innocent." "Innocent? Every man there wanted you, and you gave them exactly what they wanted. Marilyn started crying. Why are you doing this? Why can't you support me? Support you? I'm supposed to support my wife prostituting herself on camera? The words cut deep. Marilyn slapped him. Joe grabbed her wrist, hard. Don't ever touch me again, he said through gritted teeth. Let go of me. He didn't. He pushed her. She fell against the wall. Joe raised his hand. Marilyn flinched, expecting a hit, but it never came. Joe stopped himself, lowered his hand, and walked out of the room. Marilyn collapsed on the floor, sobbing. A few days later, Marilyn started feeling sick, nauseous, dizzy. She went to see a doctor. The doctor examined her, then delivered news that changed everything. Mrs. DiMaggio, you're pregnant. Marilyn's eyes widened. What? About 6 weeks along. Congratulations. Marilyn didn't know how to feel. Happy? Terrified? She was pregnant, with Joe's baby. But their marriage was falling apart. She went back to the hotel, told Joe. For a moment, his face softened. A baby? Yes. Joe hugged her. This is good. This is what we need. You'll stop working, stay home, be a mother. But Marilyn didn't want to stop working, not yet. She had commitments, contracts. I can work for a few more months, she said. Then I'll take time off. Joe's expression hardened again. No, you stop now. The baby is more important than your career. They fought again, about work, about control, about what kind of life they'd have. The stress was overwhelming. Marilyn couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The fighting, the tension, it was too much. A week later, she started bleeding. She went to the hospital. The doctors tried to save the pregnancy, but it was too late. Marilyn had a miscarriage. After losing the baby, Marilyn and Joe's marriage was beyond repair. They tried to stay together, for appearances, but the love was gone. Marilyn blamed herself for the miscarriage, the stress, the fighting, the fall during their argument. Joe blamed Marilyn too, for working, for that scene, for not putting their marriage first. On October 27, 1954, 6 weeks after the subway grate scene, Marilyn filed for divorce. They'd been married for 9 months. At the press conference, Marilyn was asked, "Why are you divorcing Joe?" She didn't mention the fights, the violence, the miscarriage. She simply said, "A conflict of careers." But everyone knew the truth. Joe couldn't handle being married to Marilyn Monroe, the star, the sex symbol, the woman the world wanted. And Marilyn couldn't handle being Joe's possession, his trophy wife, his prisoner. The 7-year itch was released in June 1955. The subway grate scene became the most iconic moment in cinema history. The image of Marilyn in the white dress, her skirt billowing up, was printed on posters, magazine covers, everywhere. It made Marilyn more famous than ever, immortalized her as the ultimate sex symbol. But every time Marilyn saw that image, she remembered the crowd of men, Joe's fury, the fight, the miscarriage, the end of her marriage. That scene cost me everything, she told a friend years later. My husband, my baby, my dignity. But it made you a legend, her friend said. Marilyn smiled sadly. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Joe DiMaggio never remarried. For the rest of his life, he carried a torch for Marilyn. In interviews, he'd say, I loved her, but I couldn't accept who she was. That's my failure, not hers. After Marilyn died in 1962, Joe took control of her funeral. He banned everyone from Hollywood, the directors, the producers, the people who'd used her. They killed her, Joe said. They turned her into an object, and I couldn't save her. For the next 20 years, Joe sent roses to Marilyn's grave, 3 times a week, every week, until he died in 1999. On his deathbed, Joe's last words were reportedly, I'll finally get to see Marilyn again. Today, the image of Marilyn Monroe standing over the subway grate is one of the most recognizable images in the world. It's been recreated, parodied, celebrated. But few people know the story behind it, the marriage it destroyed, the baby it cost, the pain it caused. Marilyn Monroe became an icon that night on Lexington Avenue, But she also lost everything that mattered: her husband, her child, her privacy, her dignity. Billy Wilder later said, "That scene was supposed to be fun, playful. I never imagined it would destroy her marriage." But it did, because Joe DiMaggio couldn't separate Marilyn the person from Marilyn the image. He loved one, but he hated the other. And Marilyn, she couldn't be both. She couldn't be Joe's quiet housewife and the world's sex symbol. So she chose herself, her career, her identity, and lost everything else in the process. September 15th, 1954. A white dress, a subway grate. A moment that lasted 15 seconds and changed everything. Marilyn Monroe became immortal, but her marriage died, and so did a part of her. That's the price of immortality. The image lives forever, but the person behind it, she pays over and over until there's nothing left to pay.